So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Let's Get to Immunity. What is your greatest concern about the COVID-19 vaccines? Today, we will have Dr. Kalama answering any questions or concerns that you may have in regards to the vaccine. If you do not want to have your video on and you prefer not to be recorded, please just turn off your video. And if you would like to ask your question live, you can, or you can definitely input it into the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen. So again, San Pablo Economic Development Corporation, we provide several services. There's a list here. Please visit our website at www.sanpabloedc.org if you would like to learn more about any of our services. So again, like I said, our presenter today is Dr. Kalama, and she basically she graduated from the University of Hawaii in 2003. And she is currently serving as an associate medical director at Lifelong Pinole Health Center and Lifelong Rodeo Health Center. So welcome, Dr. Kalama. And I do have some questions that we have some individuals who have asked in regards to the vaccine. And I don't know if you would like to start with some information, Dr. Kalama, before I start asking the questions.
Also, just wanted to add that I'm also the Associate Medical Director of the COVID response at Lifelong. So, we provide services to about 100,000 people in the East Bay as a total. And so I'm the one helping to coordinate that response for our organization.
Thank you. So if any I did get some questions prior to this, this meeting being held this morning. Some individuals have sent in their questions that they didn't want to ask live. So I will go ahead and I have a form where there are some questions that were asked. And I guess the first question is the COVID-19 vaccine safe for everyone, and could it cause long-term problems?
So I think that's probably the number one question that everybody's asking right now. It's like, the adverse effects. So like anything, and, I think it's really important to understand, like anything, nothing's safe, getting up out of bed in the morning and going into the kitchen, people have gotten hurt doing that. But you always have to look at what your risks are associated with it. And then also, to try and see, do the research on the data about what the adverse effects are. So there's a couple of things I want to just, kind of put this into context. So first off, the biggest thing, I think the most important thing that people need to understand is that across the world, that there have been 1.25 billion people who have been fully vaccinated. That's 1,250 million people worldwide have had a COVID vaccine. Specifically in the United States, it's 167 million people. And so that's half of every person that you see walking on the street. And if you're in the East Bay, that's actually like a little bit more than half of everybody that you see walking on the street is vaccinated. So I want everybody to put that into the context, because I know that there's a lot of information out there going out in like social media, TikTok, Facebook. So I wanted to say that understanding that there's a lot of information about adverse effects that's going out there, that's taking over a lot of the airwaves. And so the key thing that I want to point out to you is that if you have more than half of everybody that you're surrounded with that is that has a vaccine, you're going to hear a few things that go wrong, and that even the less than 1% of the community right. So speaking specifically about the adverse effects. Okay, so there are like the adverse effects that we're looking at are about 20% of folks get some type of reaction. And I just want to be really honest about that, like pain at the site, discomfort. You might have a headache. You might have like a kind of a swollen arm, discomfort, nausea for a few days, fatigue, and that's pretty common. And that's 20, like 1 in 5 people who get the vaccines, the Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer, Moderna one, will get these like kind of really, not really bad adverse effects. I think you're unmuted again. So that not a lot of bad adverse effects from that. So, but I think everybody's really kind of focusing on a few things: the severe allergic reaction, the heart concerns that people are talking about, the clotting concerns that people are talking about. And I really just want to emphasize that these very rare concerns that people are talking about are actually extremely rare. So some of the ones like the myositis one is like 10 to 15 people out of a million might have this kind of slight irritation of the heart. And that's something that, if you look at about out of a million people, there will be this really mild, like little mild inflammation of the heart. We do need to compare it though. You really do need to compare the fact of the COVID vaccine versus the virus. So you can't just look at the vaccine by itself. You really have to compare what happens when you get the virus and compare it to actually getting the vaccine. Because even though the vaccines are at 100%, they significantly decrease your risk and your illness. So you have to look at how is it worse to get the vaccine or the virus? And I think about half of folks believe that it's about equal, and it's really nowhere near as equal. So right now there's extremely rare instances of possible death, but there haven't been any directly associated. That there's some of those that have like coincidentally they noticed. For example, like I've heard talks about somebody getting a tumor after they get a vaccine. And then what usually happens is they might have a headache, and then they do an MRI and they find out that they have a tumor. A tumor can't grow like overnight over like a couple of weeks from a vaccine. The vaccine doesn't cause it, but that can happen after they get the vaccine shot. The heart challenges that I talked about, 10 in a million young people might get a little bit of inflammation, a little bit of pain, discomfort. But if you look at the COVID illness in and of itself, we got about, for young folks, we got, I would say like about maybe 30-40% of folks versus like less than, 0.0001% having some irritation or inflammation of the heart from the COVID virus itself. So you really have to compare one versus the other. And it's like infinitesimally smaller. But the take home message that I want to give for you is that if 50% of the people that you see walking around are vaccinated, in particular, every clinic that you go to now, it's required in California. So you got about 90% of the healthcare workers right now in all the hospitals, the clinics, all those places are already vaccinated. So if that was the case where it's actually more dangerous than the actual virus itself, you wouldn't see any healthcare workers. You'd see a massive shortage in healthcare workers, period. We would have, like, if anybody's going to turn green or grow antlers or whatever, from this, we would be seeing it. And actually the people that are in the hospitals that are working there, all the people that if you go into a clinic or hospital, you see all of them walking around, pretty much all of them are vaccinated. And so like here we have 1,000 employees at Lifelong, we got about 90% vaccination at our site, at our clinics as well. We don't have a single person who died from it. Everybody's continued with work. The commonality of it, just the broad presence of people in your everyday life who've been vaccinated is so broad that there's a few instances you might know of a friend of a friend of a friend on Facebook that mentions something, but it's not people all around you. If it was really that bad, half of the people would be decimated by it because you've received the vaccine already.
Then mute myself now. I do apologize for that background noise. I didn't think you could hear it, so my apologies. I guess the other question that we had was, does the vaccine protect against all COVID variants? And for how long would the vaccine protect you? Would you need a booster?
Okay, so that's a good question, and I think that always kind of comes back to the question of that. Really, the underlying question is, how, why should I get a vaccine if it does work? And that's really kind of the heart of what that question is asking for. And so basically, for right now, everybody's worried about the Delta variant. And if you look at nationally, I'd say around 90% of the virus they're sequencing right now is the Delta variant. So that's the one of concern that we're most concerned about. Now, if all of the vaccines are not created equally, but they're all considered to be very effective at preventing severe illness and also death. So what we're looking at is for the Delta variant, it's the variant that it's not as effective. It's more able to break through and have breakthrough infections than previous variants have, but it's still extremely effective at preventing you from even getting the illness. So about you're 6 times more likely to get COVID if you're unvaccinated. So if you have, a room of so you can compare it. If you have a room of like 6 people and they're just people that you just randomly choose, and you expose them all to the same amount of virus, then they're more like 5 of them are more likely for unvaccinated to get it than one person who's unvaccinated. You're also 15 times more likely to get hospitalized if you're unvaccinated. So basically what we're seeing right now is like about 90% of the people who are in the hospitals right now are unvaccinated. I'm seeing patients every day, and the people that I'm seeing who are positive are all unvaccinated. Some doing very well, some doing not so well, some of them going into the hospital in the ICU, and some of them unfortunately dying. So for the Delta variant, the thing is with all this data that's coming out is that it's evolving as we go along. So as this virus evolves, we're learning more about each different one. So as far as the Delta variant goes, specifically the Moderna and Pfizer, it seems like the Moderna one is most effective against the virus. Pfizer's next, Johnson & Johnson is third, as far as being able to prevent you from getting sick. But they're all extremely effective against death and dying. So if you look at the hospitals in the East Bay, for example, like the Contra Costa County, right now, we've got 90% of the people in the hospital are all unvaccinated. So you're going to hear a lot of the breakthrough infections. You're going to hear a lot about that, but you're still protected like tremendously if you get the vaccine. How long is it going to last? They've shown that there's immunity levels that continue on for several years. Because right now, that's the oldest vaccine that was injected was actually 2 years ago almost. So because of the early experiments that they did on the vaccines. So what they're seeing is there's still a pretty robust response, but what you see is kind of a decrease over time. You might need to have boosters. We don't know yet for sure. Certainly, we know that if you get a booster, you'll get a stronger immune response. We don't know exactly when we're going to need to get them, but for pretty soon, what you'll see is the FDA will fully approve most of the vaccines. And once that happens, they're probably going to approve a booster for immunocompromised patients. I don't think they might. I'm guessing that we're all going to probably need a booster going into the winter season, and they might actually kind of tweak the recipe a little bit to try and improve things. But that's 8 months. In August, that's going to be a couple months. I'm probably not going to hear anything for at least a couple of months about possibly getting a booster at this point. But by then, we'll know a lot more about Delta. We knew a lot more. I was been worried about Delta for 2 months now because I've been watching what was happening in India and also prior to that in England. So it does take about a couple of months for us to get really good information. So we'll be getting some great information about that. It's just coming out right now about Delta in about 2 more months about whether or not we need the booster or not.
Thank you for that. And then I guess these two questions kind of overlap. So the question is, if I have tested positive for COVID-19 and have recovered, do I need to get vaccinated? And the same thing, another question was, does getting sick with COVID-19 provide better protection than the vaccine gives? So I guess they're similar questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. They've actually done research, and the research is very solid on this, that if you had COVID before, that you're much more likely to get the Delta variant if you just got wild COVID than if you're vaccinated. So in other words, vaccine is superior to the wild virus. Also, there tends to be longer immunity if you actually have the vaccine. So that's kind of was a really surprise to a lot of folks. That's why science is so important. You actually, you don't want to just like ask what your uncle's, cousins, roommates, goddaughter happened to them. You really want to see what's happening over like thousands of people, and really at this point, almost billions of people. That how they respond to the virus, because everybody's a little bit different. So basically what they found is that people who are, there is some level of protection. People got infected early in the pandemic. So like, for example, majority of people got infected around a winter time, and before that also in the spring. Because there was a big drop in like the early spring of this year. But they last year, or around 2020, they had infections around the holidays, like around July 4th, like they're having now, and also around Christmas. Those were the big peaks. If you're infected during that period of time, it wasn't with the Delta variant. The Delta variant wasn't in existence at that point. And the Delta variant seems to be very effective at actually having breakthrough infections. You still have a little bit of protection, but it's not as much as the vaccine.
Thank you for that. And then I guess the next question is, should you get a COVID-19 vaccine if you're pregnant or breastfeeding?
So actually the CDC just came out with a very clear guidance around that, saying that they absolutely strongly recommend that pregnant women get the vaccine. So this information was was put forth by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So like all of your pregnancy doctors that are out there have really been worried about it, as well, about whether or not pregnant women should get the vaccine. So first off, women who are pregnant have a much higher rate of death, and also there's a miscarriage if you were to get the COVID virus itself. So the risks are very high. You have a high rate of going into the hospital, also losing your baby, and also potentially dying if you're pregnant and get the actual COVID virus. For that reason, months ago, I would say 6 months ago, there was an announcement by all the baby doctors to say that we should definitely vaccinate pregnant women. And now the CDC fully came out with it, that they absolutely strongly recommend it. So there's been a little bit of rumors. There's a couple of things that have been happening. A couple of rumors that are out there. One of them is that that actually COVID, if you get the COVID vaccine, you can't go around anybody who's pregnant because you could get them sick. And I see that a lot with people, that they could actually kill them or their baby. That's actually mixing up the side effects from the virus from the vaccine. With the virus, you have no chance of transmitting COVID whatsoever. And so you can't transmit it to a pregnant woman or affect the pregnancy or affect the baby. Even if you're having sex with them, that's just not how it doesn't inject itself in that way. Okay, so it goes through the mucosa here, not the mucosa down there. All right, so that's one thing. The second thing is there's a lot of rumors going around that there's the possibility of it causing infertility as well. And that's actually just kind of related before you actually get pregnant. And so that it actually affects the cellular DNA. Those are both false. Basically, the vaccine never enters the cell nucleus, which is where all the DNA is at. It never enters that, so it has no way to actually change the DNA of the body. And two, in regards to like getting, as far as fertility, since it doesn't affect the DNA, it doesn't affect fertility. So the long-term effects that people are talking about so far, none of it's been bearing out. I mean, like, this literally is the most scrutinized vaccine in the history of the planet. So if you're going to find any data, if you're going to find anything wrong with it, it's, they're talking, when they're talking about something, you're hearing about it from like, a rumor that's in this news thing about coming from Florida or coming from, China. If it was really happening, the half of the people that you see walking around being pregnant, having kids, working in the corner drugstore, or taking care of you at the hospital, those people, we would see that because of like myself, me, everybody in my household is infected. It's not infected, sorry, vaccinated. Sorry for that slip. We would be seeing these effects with people. And I understand that there's people have been worried about things that happen after people get vaccinated, but that's not the same thing as something that causes it. Say, for example, if I got vaccinated today and I find out that I'm pregnant next week, the vaccine didn't get me pregnant. Other stuff got me pregnant. So that's a difference between a cause and then something that's correlated. Could I definitely get, pregnant next week? I could, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that it's anything related to like the vaccine itself. So I think we have to, kind of be clear about, dialing down some of the fears that we have. Connect with somebody that you trust. Get a good relationship with a doctor. You can, if you're in the Contra Costa area, even if you don't have insurance, you can actually sign up for lifelong. Or if you have insurance, definitely you can sign up for lifelong if you have like any of the Medi-Cal plans. Talk to one of us. You can have a one-on-one consultation if you're one of our patients to directly address what are your specific fears, because some people are worried about allergies and heart conditions and all of these different things that could possibly play a role. And so you should have a direct consultation with a healthcare provider. If you say, for example, if you got, your mother was shot in the street, you wouldn't go to Facebook to get them treated. So don't go to Facebook to get your information about COVID. It's the same exact thing. You want to go to somebody that cares about you and cares about the community. For example, like I just want to point out that as far as the lifelong providers go, we are dedicated to providing services to folks who are in the people of color, Black, Indigenous, LGBTQ, marginalized, houseless. We are people who could work anywhere and get paid a whole lot more. I would be making a ton of money if I were to sell out and work for, any of the corporations that are, that would like me to peddle their products. But I'm deciding to work in this community because I actually care about our community. I come from the community. Our family is, I grew up in poverty. I want to provide excellent care to everyone, and it doesn't often happen to our communities. So this is why I'm prioritizing it. So that's the reason why you should find a primary care provider, build a relationship with them that you can trust, and you can ask them about the specific concerns you have.
Thank you. And we here at San Pablo EDC, we also have information on where you can call to schedule a vaccine or where you can get a vaccine. So please, for sure, if you want to get in touch with us, you don't know where to start, you can give us a call at 510-215-3200, and we can connect you with locations that are providing the vaccine. So yes, please reach out to us. And I think we have one last question before I know you have to go. So the last question is, it's in regards to children. Will COVID-19 vaccines be available for young children? And when do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, that's, I think part of the urgency for getting younger children vaccinated and doing the research on that hasn't been quite so urgent, because before we had the Delta variant, we weren't seeing quite as many infections, and I think they're just seeing very large number of infections that are occurring. So that's why we're seeing some among younger people. However, they are in the process of looking to approve, I believe, 5 to 12-year-olds. I think that's going to happen probably in the next couple of months. But I know that the priority has been pushing to actually get just full FDA approval of the vaccines for 12 and above, because those are the ones that are being more strongly affected. If you have children who are at risk, who are unvaccinated, the best thing you can do to protect your kids is to get vaccinated and have everyone around them getting vaccinated. So California just made also an announcement that at the schools that all teachers and all staff will need to get vaccinated. So that will be very helpful for kids, because people at the adults at school will be vaccinated. And then if you can get everybody in your household vaccinated, that's helpful. And the way I describe it to anybody who has a baby in their life that's too young to get vaccinated at this point. We can be the wall that helps protect them. You know, that walls all over, you know, we know that no wall is impregnable, but a layer of defense is the best way we can protect our children, because it's not totally without, you know, harm to babies. If you look at the risks associated with, you know, an allergic reaction, multi-system inflammatory disease associated with COVID for children, and possible, you know, leads to possible long-term problems, is, you know, about the same rate as like severe life-threatening allergic reaction. So, you know, it's not, that one's not as rare, and it's not really getting as much press as the folks who are getting like allergic reactions. So, you know, we got to be, you know, mindful of the numbers. They're kind of mind-boggling and like terrifying, but we really have to look at them and crunch them and compare them side by side to what's happening out in the community.
I thought I was already unmuted. Sorry about that. Thank you, Dr. Kalama. Thank you so much for your time. I know that you are super busy with everything that's going on right now. So we do appreciate you making this time today to answer concerns and questions from our community. And if anyone here today is interested in getting more information about where to get vaccinated or where to start, please give us a call here at San Pablo EDC, again at 215-3200, 510 area code, or you can visit our website at www.sanpabloedc.org. Hopefully all the questions that Dr. Kalama answered today gives you a little bit of more understanding of how the vaccine works, and that way you can make an informative decision as to whether this is the way that you want to go. And so thank you again, Dr. Kalama. We really appreciate your time, and I know that you have something else scheduled right after this, so I don't want to take more of your time. So thank you so much.
All right, take care. Bye.
Thank you.